for our candidate forum co-hosted by the Tippecanoe GOP and the Republican Women's Club. The COVID-19 emergency has impacted all of us in significant ways. Likewise, candidates and their campaigns have been impacted as well. This is a new and challenging environment, and quite frankly, it's placed strain on everyone. We've had to find new ways to do business, and campaigns haven't been any different. Back on March 17th, we scheduled a caucus to fill Brian Metzger's term for Tippecanoe County Council At-Large. We scheduled an event on March 17th to hold that caucus, had to cancel that because of the emergency, and even as late as yesterday, the Republican Women's Club had previously scheduled a candidate event and had to cancel that because of the emergency. So again, this is in response to, specific response to that, and that's what brings us here tonight. A little over a week ago, we held our first virtual caucus ever, and it was likely the first caucus held virtually in the state of Indiana. Nearly 100% of our precinct committeemen joined us from their computers, their laptops, their tablets, their phones, from runways at airports, and even one from York, Pennsylvania, who had responded to the COVID-19 emergency. Now we find ourselves 2 weeks away from Indiana's June 2nd primary. We have great candidates from the top of the ticket with Governor Eric Holcomb all the way to our local races. They need your support, and most important, they need your vote. That support doesn't end on June 2nd. There'll be a great deal of work to do in the coming months as we head to the general election. There's going to be a lot of campaigns out there that are going to need help, and I encourage you all to find ways to get plugged into those campaigns. Winning with a team effort is easier and it's fun. Speaking of teams, I want to take a moment to recognize the wonderful team that we have on hand this evening, and many of these folks were also with us at our caucus back on May 7th. Lafayette First Christian Church for hosting us again this evening in their fellowship hall. Our producer and IAD extraordinaire, Steve Klink. Videographers Robin Sturgeon and Ross Klink. Our sound engineer, David Caddy of Smith Sound. Kyle Rice, who put together our social media package. From the Republican Women's Club, our timekeepers, B. Smith and Isabel Hogue. Also want to thank Barb Knackle and Julie Roush for their help in planning for this event. A lot of hours went into this, and I know it won't be flawless tonight because it is technology, but I'm hopeful that you'll get a lot out of it as you hear from each of our candidates. Tonight's forum is going to be divided into two segments. In just a few minutes, we'll start session one, which will involve our County Council At-Large candidates. There are a total of 6 candidates in that race. And then later tonight at 7 o'clock, you will hear from 3 candidates who are vying for Judge of Superior Court 4. The format is going to be the same for each of these sessions. After introductions, our moderators will ask questions of each candidate. They're going to do that in a predetermined order that was set prior to this broadcast. The order will be rotated with each progressive question. If time allows, we may take additional questions by phone line that we will get to you, but again, with 6 candidates and a boatload of questions, quite frankly, it's unlikely that in this session that we'll be able to do that. Our first moderator this evening is Gina Quattrocchi. Gina and her family are lifelong Tippecanoe County residents. She's a Purdue alum with a degree in liberal arts and spent over 2 decades working as both a reporter and an anchor with our local affiliate, WLFI TV 18. Her career put her in the heart of many important issues in our community, but she always found a way to get plugged into local nonprofits such as the March of Dimes, Jerry Lewis, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and the American Heart Association. It is my pleasure to turn things over now to Gina Quattrocchi.
Very good. Tracy, thank you so much. As Tracy said, I'm Gina Quattrocchi, very happy to be with you here this evening. We're going to get right to it, and we're going to meet our candidates tonight. First, John Basham.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Tracy, for that introduction. I am John Basham. I am Tippecanoe County Council At-Large. I'm running again. First of all and foremost, I'd like to thank First Christian Church. the Republican Women's Club, and the GOP. The Tippecanoe County Council holds the purse strings to the county. The commissioners make the law, and then they come to the council on how to spend it and whether we spend it or not. In 2009, when I had taken office, the economy was in bad shape. I think we did a great job. I've been in business myself for 42 years, and by the way, we on the council we have a $7 million rainy day fund, which will come in handy. Hopefully we don't use it, but it'll come in handy. I'm a numbers guy. You show me the numbers, I can put it together. I deal with big money, big numbers, and I know how to handle money. If you think I'm worthy of that cause, I'll give you my best. John Basham, County Council at Large.
John Basham, thank you. Our next candidate tonight, Dave Williams.
Thank you, Gina. I am Dave Williams. I live at 516 South 8th Street in Lafayette. I've been married to Charmian Williams for nearly 40 years, and we've raised 5 adult sons. I came to Lafayette as a student teacher, was assigned to teach after student teaching, and worked 34 years in the LSC, with 29 of those years as a principal. I took early retirement and worked for 14 years with Purdue Credit Union as their development manager. I spent 8 years on the council, 5 of those in leadership positions. I spent 2 years as vice president and 3 years as president. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dave, thank you very much. Our next candidate to meet this evening, Mr. Barry Richard.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you, all the Republican Party, for being able to tune in and being able to be available to support the candidates. I've been married to my wife, Cindy, for 40 years. We have 3 adult children, Clayton, Casey, and Taylor. We've all been lifelong residents of Tippecanoe County. We're very fortunate to have such a tremendous county of people that's all working together. And obviously, that's something I've been very blessed with, is to work in our community. One thing I want to make sure everybody kind of pays attention to and works through the candidates and your decision on who to vote for and who to support. I'm the only candidate up here, non-incumbent, that were signed up when there were 3 incumbents signed up. That shows that I am willing to work at it, to go out there and make sure that we do all we can to make sure our ticket is elected in November. It's very important to get candidates that are electable. Thank you.
Barry Richard, thank you. Our next candidate to meet this evening is Mr. Shane Wiest.
Thank you, Gina. I'm a lifelong resident of Tippecanoe County, a graduate of Central Catholic and Purdue University. I'm married to my wife, Chelsea, and I have 3 kids, Logan, Ellen, Hope. Thank you for joining us tonight during this very difficult time. I continue to pray for all of you and your families during this. I've been very active in our party for many years through the steering committee. I was previously chairman of the Fairfield Township Board, so I've dealt a lot with financial numbers and budgets. I've served on many local nonprofit boards as president, as treasurer, many different positions, so I've dealt a lot with budgets in that sense as well. I'm here because I want to continue to serve the community. As part of this council, I promise to serve you to my best ability, always keeping the best interests of our citizens and especially our future generations in mind. I will serve with dignity, truth, and never fear of asking questions. I appreciate your time this evening, and most of all, I appreciate your support.
Shane Wiest, thank you very much. Our next candidate to meet this evening is Mr. Kevin Underwood.
Thank you, Gina. I'm Kevin Underwood, if we've not had the opportunity to meet. I have the opportunity and honor to serve as a member of our Tippecanoe County Council at Large. I also serve as the president of our council. I became the president when our past president, Brian Metzger, passed away earlier this past year. My wife, Sherry, and I have been married for 30 years. We have 3 adult children, and we farm with my family in the northwest part of Tippecanoe County. I've used the opportunity in my life to be able to serve our community both in agriculture and here in Tippecanoe County. Just to highlight a couple of things that I've done in that time, I served for 9 years as the president of Tippecanoe County of the Tippecanoe County Farm Bureau Board. I also serve on the Indiana Farm Bureau Board as on the board of directors with the 8 counties in this particular area of the state, and also serve as the chair of the board of elders for the Crestview Community Church here in Lafayette. Thank you.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you very much. Our last candidate this evening, Jody Hamilton.
Good evening, I'm Jody Hamilton. I'm excited to be here tonight, and thank you to everybody involved in putting this together. This is extremely exciting to have the opportunity to be able to speak with all of you and answer some questions tonight. I've been born and raised here in Tippecanoe County, along with my husband was born and raised here as well, and we have 2 teenage children, a son and a daughter, and they're heavily involved in what's going on in the community. In the past 24 years, I've spent in economic development, serving the existing companies and helping them grow, as well as many challenges that we've gone through with this community in the last 24 years. I've also worked with several companies in recruiting them to the community as well. And with that, working with the City of Lafayette, West Lafayette, and obviously the many departments within the county. So I'm excited to be here tonight, and I look for your support. Thank you.
Jody Hamilton, thank you. Thank you to our candidates. We'll now move to the question portion of this evening. Our first question will start with Mr. John Basham. The question is, the County Council has the ultimate decision-making power regarding fiscal affairs. This includes setting policy and procedures for the allocation and expenditure of county funds. The strength of the Tippecanoe County Council is in the diverse backgrounds of its members. If elected in November, what special skills or attributes will you bring to the council?
Thank you, Gina. To answer that question, I have a lot of business skills. I had a grocery store here in Lafayette when it wasn't popular, low-income area. I made it go. I have about 1,000 students at Purdue University, a large business. I lived in Tippecanoe County all my life. One of the things I brought to the county, and how long do I have? 2 minutes? Okay. My background was in environmental at Eli Lilly, so John Kanako put me on this task of building a sewer in Romney, Indiana. So it was going on. It took about 13 years. I got on it, and we got it moved in 8 years. And we have 145 homes in Romney, Indiana that are hooked up, not contaminated in our streams. And like I said, I can bring business experience. You show me the numbers, I can make them work. I love this county, and I want to serve. I want to continue to serve. Thank you.
John Basham, thank you. Next, Dave Williams.
One of the things that I bring to the council is the ability to problem solve, to think out of the box, find a way to make it happen. One of the concerns that I have is not in terms of how much money we have to spend, but a concern for income coming in. We have no idea what our property tax collection is going to be. For example, almost all of the money for highways comes from the gas tax. As many of you know, most people have not been driving as much. So I guess the main thing that I bring is some leadership. I directed the council for 3 years during that budgeting process. And we can find a way in this community to make things happen, to make things work. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Williams, thank you. Mr. Barry Richard.
Thank you, Gina. This is an area on the county council that I feel that I'm extremely well qualified for. My background in many areas will indicate that. Being a Tippecanoe County Sheriff, each of the 4 years we were under budget. We were able to come in, and at the time it was close to a third of the county budget, so I was able to manage that, even though our department was well undermanned. And we had a lot of struggles and a lot of things that we had to do. So one of the things, many of the things that I was able to do was non-taxpayers' money to use. The commissary account was used for many areas, like, for example, $170,000 was coming out of commissary for a training simulator that helped our deputies, our corrections officers, our patrol, every aspect, our courthouse security, we're able to do that. $200,000 I used out of the commissary account for the safety of the entire department and the inmates. We were able to buy the body scanner and use that to screen all the incoming inmates and as we needed. $20,000 is something our entire community is benefiting from, and that was our drone. Also, point out $100,000 out of the commissary I gave to our county government to help facilitate raises for our well underpaid deputies that brought their pay closer to in line with the other departments. I know how to manage fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
All right, Barry Richard, thank you. Your answer, Shane Wiest.
Working in the home building field, I have a great knowledge for our needs for community growth and how to encourage that growth. Ways such as community safety and infrastructure, and making sure we're using those dollars wisely towards those causes. We have definitely a need for more low-income affordable housing. And I think as a council, we can look at ways to encourage spending, to encourage easy growth as a home builder, and look at ways that our community can be safe and how we can encourage that infrastructure and make sure we're offering quality opportunities to millennials, and we're getting good retention of our students as they graduate from Purdue. So I think that knowledge I have in that field will be a great benefit to this council as we move forward.
All right, Shane Wiest, thank you very much. Kevin Underwood, your turn.
As a farmer, I just want to continue to bring a sound common sense approach to our county council and to county government. As in the agricultural industry, we don't know what our income is going to be until the combine actually runs through the field and we actually get an idea of what our yield is going to be, and we don't know what the prices are going to be until we actually have an opportunity to sell the crop. And so like we are in the county government, where we're not certain where we're going to be in terms of our tax revenue, we have to make those adjustments and apply those proper judgments according to what we need to do with those expenses on the fly. And I think that's one of those things that I'm capable of doing quite well and have done in the past.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you. Jody Hamilton, your answer.
Thank you. So having a career in economic development, I've seen and been involved in so many things when it comes to the community growth. I've also been involved in a lot of things that, the challenges of the community as well. And being on the county council and being fiscally responsible body of the county, it's an important role because it gives us an opportunity to work with the departments within the county government on their budgets as well, especially during this time of uncertainty with the COVID-19. We're going to see, funds not coming in that may have came in before, but the economy is going to come back around. And when we do, and when it does, we've got to take this time to really focus on some of the things that financially of where we need to be saving, so that when that time does come, that we can continue on and make sure the economy stays growing.
All right, Jody Hamilton, thank you so much. Our next question this evening: what do you see as the greatest challenges facing local units of government, and how will you focus your efforts to address those challenges? Let's start with Dave Williams.
I think the biggest issue that we have to deal with is short funds. I think next year we shouldn't be having any problem. We've got $7 million in a rainy day fund that should be used for rainy day. We also have about $3 million in a rainy day fund for health insurance for our employees. I think the biggest issue we have is funding programs that we have and making sure that we make sound judgments. Many of our neighboring counties have had to take roads back to gravel because they have not had any kind of experience in terms of raising money and saving money. I think we are in better shape than most, but the biggest issue will be, as in most organizations, being able to generate funds, to think out of the box. The public safety funds that I helped work on when I was on the county will generate about $4 million this year. This should offset some of the expense out of the general fund. Thank you.
All right, Dave Williams, thank you. Barry Richard, your turn.
Yes, I strongly believe one of the biggest concerns that we have coming up for our community is public safety. I brought before the council and proposed during the time as sheriff in 2017 to activate and go with an income tax or a local income tax that would provide additional funds. Nothing was done on that until obviously I was out of office in the next year. Where this is important and where I think people need to understand is my ability to think and plan ahead, because obviously things come up and we got to be able to deal with them and be able to adapt. In 2015, I also presented the county government with a proposal to gradually and to responsibly grow our sheriff's department so it's not a big hit at one time. I know with the new income tax revenue that's coming up, we have many areas, the courts, the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's department, health department. We've got to be able to handle all, even though at first it sounds like a lot of money that may come in, which obviously income taxes are going to be lower than what we anticipated. We must be able to do things without using taxpayers' money. I was able to start a volunteer program that was called the Community Navigators. I tripled the inmate health services, the mental health services, and I more than doubled their health services. I know how to get things done within budget and to reduce cost. For your best investment, and that's what it is, I'm the person for the job.
Barry Richard, thank you. Shane Wiest.
As Dave mentioned, I mean, it's a difficult time with the virus and figuring out how to deal with that in our income and tax dollars and the decrease we might see. And, you know, thankfully we do have that rainy day fund moving forward, but we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to look at all departments and all department budgets and make sure we're allocating all of our dollars wisely. And as we move forward, just making sure we're looking at opportunities we can continue to grow even though we're in this environment, and just make sure that we're creative with our dollars and we make Tippecanoe County keep being a better place.
All right, thank you very much, Shane Wiest. Now Kevin Underwood.
Thank you, Gina. With nearly 75% of our overall general fund budget going to personnel expenses in one form or another, I think where we're going to have to concentrate the most in this time of uncertainty is looking at ways to be able to cross-train and make our employee staff more efficient as we move forward in the coming months and years, in order to be able to make sure that we are able to continue to serve the public of Tippecanoe County in an effective and efficient manner.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you. Finally, Jody Hamilton.
Thank you. Actually, I think every one of these folks on the panel here have definitely hit it on the head. But two of the things that I really think are really going to be challenging is obviously the less funds that we may be coming in because of the virus. So we're definitely going to have to be more creative. But another thing is the public safety. And with the public safety tax revenues that will be coming in, and which I believe the county itself will be about $4 million, I really think we need to take this opportunity and look at putting some of those funds and seeing what we can do creatively around the mental health of the community, as well as substance abuse issues here. Because with the virus and the COVID-19, you know, some folks have lost their jobs and are staying home or having to educate their kids and things on, and that's a lot of stress to the families. And sometimes when folks do already have mental challenges, issues, it makes it even worse. So I really think we need to look at developing more programs, and even partnering with both cities in our community as well to see what we can do to help with that.
Jody Hamilton, thank you very much. Your question, John Basham.
Thank you, Gina. When I became involved in politics about 11 years ago, I wanted to show the public that I'm not a politician. I never have been a politician. People who know John Basham said he'll say what's on his mind. So I came up with a slogan, and a member of my family questioned it. It was called "Common Sense Counts." What's that mean? I said, common sense counts. Do you have to have a doctor's degree to run this county? No, you don't have to. So I've used that approach. Common sense counts. You show me the numbers, I can make it work. Out of those 11 years, 5 years, I served as a president and vice president. I know what makes things work in this county. I'm over the highway department, I'm over the assessor's office, the treasurer, the surveyor, that's their budget. I work with these department heads. These department heads have a big obligation. They not only have to run their department efficiently, they've got to run and deal with personnel. And I work with those department heads. So when this time comes, if this county really gets in dire straits like it was in 2009, I'm your guy. You better believe it. I can do it. Once again, I said we have $7 million in rainy day. I do not want to touch it. So we can manage things and we can make this work in Tippecanoe County. We have a great place to live. And I have a passion for Tippecanoe County. I was born and raised in this county. Do you think I'm worthy? I would love your vote. Thank you.
John Basham, thank you. Our next question this evening. Tippecanoe County has built strong cash reserves in the general fund. 25% of that fund is from income taxes. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, expected revenue may decrease dramatically. Should the county council use some of the reserves to fund departments in 2021 or decrease expenditures, including reductions in county personnel or a hiring freeze? Let's start with Barry Richard.
Yes. Unfortunately, this is a crisis that nobody saw coming with the COVID-19, the coronavirus, and it's going to play a big part in what we're able to fund and not fund. However, public safety, I go back to that because obviously I've been in law enforcement for 38 years, directly involved with law enforcement, knowing how important it is for us to have a safe environment for our families. So we can't cut back. I mean, the law enforcement area of it already is undermanned. The things that we need are going to be there, and we can't cut back to where it's a crisis and unsafe for our community. Yes, the rainy day fund is there, and yes, if we need to use some of those funds to make our community safe, our families feel safe, our community to progress, we will use those reserve funds. If it's not a crisis now, when do you call it a crisis? Because this is the time that leaders take a hold and use appropriate, responsible fiscal management of the situation. And if that's what we need to keep our county departments at full strength, be able to provide for our citizens, then that's what we'll do. And I will make sure, as your representative on the county council, that we have all the resources available to us to keep our community as great as it is and to make your family safe. So for the future generations, your children, your grandchildren, and generations, Barry Richard is their future leader.
Barry Richard, thank you. Your question, Shane Wiest.
Thank you. This is going to be an extremely important time for our council to be meeting with all departments, looking at all expenditures very closely, asking all department heads to look at expenditures very closely. And, I don't want to see us removing staff because, everybody at that county building seems to be very essential. I want to make sure everybody has the resources they need because this building and these people are extremely important to serving you, the people of our county. And I just think it's important that we look at the needs and make sure all of those needs are being met and looking at all the expenditures and making sure we're spending all those dollars wisely as we move forward.
All right, Shane Wiest, thank you. Your question, Kevin Underwood.
Thank you. I would look again at the potential of gaining efficiency by cross-training, looking at how we're using our personnel in the most efficient manner. I think we're going to need to work very closely with each one of our department heads, our elected officials in each one of those departments, and how we can use our employees to the maximum efficiency that we can in order to be able to maximize that. And then if we get to that point where we see a real issue with needing to bridge that gap, then that's when we possibly look at maybe tapping into some of those rainy day funds in order to be able to bridge that gap. But I think we need to look at all those efficiencies first and really evaluating what are the actual needed expenditures before we would tap into those.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you. Jody Hamilton.
Thank you. As we're coming in to start talking and looking at budgets of the department, it's definitely going to be important for us as a council to really look at those with a fine-tooth comb and work with those department heads and seeing how they can be more efficient, as well as are there things that they were planning on doing that maybe could hold off for a little bit. I definitely, eliminating staff is definitely not something that I would encourage, especially with the county does so much already in those departments that they're already, pretty efficient, but need to be more efficient. In regards to the rainy day fund, I think that would be the last resort, but it is something that we're going to have to look at if it comes down to it, if something we need to do.
All right, Jody Hamilton, thank you. Mr. John Basham.
Well, I go back to my statement earlier about common sense counts. You got to sit down, you got to talk it out, you got to get a game plan. It's just like coaching a football game or a basketball game. You got to get together with the leaders, and that's what I do. I get with my department heads who I represent. One thing I always believed in, that your employees are your biggest asset, and I don't believe in getting rid of employees. Now, if you got someone that's not doing the job, then that's another case. That's for human resources. But it's sit down, talk it out, and like I said, we have a $7 million rainy day, and I don't want to get that far down the road. But we can work it out. I don't oversee the department heads. I'm not there every day. We depend on them. If there's somebody that needs to move over here to pick up that slack, then that may happen later on down the road, just to fulfill that job and keep the person employed. But once again, employees are your biggest asset, and I believe in keeping our employees, keeping them happy. We've given them a raise the last several years, and but we've got some challenges ahead, and I'm ready for them. Thank you.
John Basham, thank you. Mr. Dave Williams.
I think we should do a combination of several things. I know we have already issued some cutbacks on spending. I see more of a problem in 2022 than in 2021. I think, 70% of our general fund comes from property tax and income tax. I think both of those will be hurt, but will not feel the benefit or the results of that until a year later. I know public safety monies were originally set in there to offset some of the general fund loss. When you look at the sheriff's department and the prosecutors and the court system, that's roughly 70% of our county budget. So when we make cutbacks in those areas of the general fund, we've got 23 or 24 other departments that feel the brunt more than sheriff's department or the court system, because that's where most of our employees are. Again, I think we need to think out of the box. We can't do things just the way we have been doing them in the past. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave Williams. Our next question this evening. Most of road funding is derived from Indiana's gas tax. Since the COVID-19 emergency, Hoosiers are driving fewer miles and less revenue is being generated. Locally, the Tippecanoe County Highway Department has estimated that by year end, if conditions don't improve, revenue from the tax may fall by 30 to 40%. Should the council delay or eliminate certain road projects or look for additional sources of revenue such as a wheel tax increase? Shane Weiss, we'll start with you.
I definitely think we need to look for additional sources of revenue. Our county infrastructure really is everything to us as far as growth in this community. And if we can't provide quality infrastructure and quality bridges and roads, we're not going to get the growth we need from companies and individuals coming into this community. So I think this is going to be a huge issue and something we really need to look at closely. It is important, without this revenue, that we look at other sources to get this revenue. And unfortunately, if that means some other taxes, that may be what we will have to do. But I feel like our roads and infrastructure are going to be very important for everybody moving forward in this community.
All right, Shane Weiss, thank you. Kevin Underwood, your turn.
I would want to meet with our highway personnel and be able to really prioritize those projects and really figure out what ones really need to be attacked here in the next year or two and what ones could potentially be delayed. Looking at additional funding in the middle of a situation where we are currently is a little bit dicey in terms of people are already hurting in terms of finances. So I would prefer to really look at how we can prioritize those projects in order to be as most efficient as we can be and delay having to look at other funding sources until we absolutely need to.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you. Jody Hamilton.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing would be to meet with the highway department and prioritize those projects, because I think we might find that there's some that definitely we need to be moving forward to, and some that can kind of be put on back burner a little bit. But my challenge was putting, decreasing some of the things that we may be doing is the economy. We need to get this economy back as fast as we can, and to do that, we're going to have to continue to recruit additional companies to the community, as well as working with our companies to grow. And before we can do that, we got to make sure we have the infrastructure in place, because attracting companies to this community, that's one of the #1 things that they need is good infrastructure and looking for in the community. So definitely, prioritizing those, seeing what we can do on that aspect. When it comes to looking for other revenue sources, maybe at this point there might be some other grants that we might, as a county, may be able to look at, which is something we could look into further. But looking at putting another tax in place would be definitely challenging at this time as well. So.
Okay, Jody Hamilton, thank you so much. Mr. John Basham.
First and foremost would be safety, and that would be, we're not going to cut short on safety. This thing's going to go away. It's going to get better. The economy's going to get better. This virus is going to go away. We're going to survive it. It's tough, but I'm thinking positive about this. That's why I'm thinking positive about the highway. Like I said earlier, I'm over the highway department, the budgets. And we sit and we converse and we talk about it. But I think what we need to do is, prioritize the projects that are safety issues. You can say, well, I got potholes, that's safety. Well, yeah, it is. But then you got bridges and culverts. So I would say that we'll just hammer it out. Trying to find other funding. I'm not really for a guy to pay more taxes. I pay him enough taxes here in Tippecanoe County. But I'd like to toot my own horn here. I know the ex-sheriff was talking about how he moved things around, that stuff. But I, as a citizen, I come forward and paid several $1,000s for the SWAT team for the night vision. So I have a passion for this county, and I believe in this county. You want somebody who can do the job, you're looking at him. Thank you kindly for your vote, John Basham.
All right, John Basham, thank you. Dave Williams, please.
Thank you, Gina. First of all, I'd like to say that our county highway department has been managed very, very well. We're in good conditions. We have managed to get a major bridge fund funded. We have minimal amounts in that. We also have capital projects. I'm not opposed to additions to wheel tax when it's necessary. I think the gas tax probably is a place that we need to start with, because I think that figure is very, very low. Again, I'm not one to throw money at something simply to be able to raise tax, but I think the way our county is set up, it's based on a rapport with department heads and council members, and being able to think out of the box and finding additional ways to fund things is the way we need to go.
All right, Dave Williams, thank you. Mr. Barry Richard.
Yes, definitely not in favor of any additional taxes, so that would not be on the table as far as I'm concerned. A reassessment of what conditions the areas are, what roads are, what the bridges situations, do an assessment of that and really determine the safety of the community. That would be paramount. But then what I would do is I'd come back and work with some of the private contractors that may have bid on some projects that may be in jeopardy. Obviously, these are very uncertain times. These are times that none of us have experienced before. And the owners or contractors that's wanting to have those jobs, there's some profit that they have put into theirs, and that's justified. But what we need to do is, as the county council and being responsible for the funds, we need to work with those private contractors and work out maybe a reduction in what was going to cost a project. We can reduce that considerably with the win-win situation. Get our work done, keep them in business, keep their employees employed. We need to always kind of think, how can we be creative in making and maximizing our returns? So for me, as the leader and being able to represent you, the citizens of Tippecanoe County, we always got to make sure we're doing anything and everything we can to put the public safety first and the conditions of our infrastructure, making sure that we maximize our returns. And I will do that as your council representative.
All right, Barry Richard, thank you. Our next question this evening. In 2019, the Income Tax Council of Tippecanoe County, made up of the county, cities, and incorporated towns, approved a local income tax to be used for public safety. The public safety tax has generated approximately $4 million for the county in its first year. Because of COVID-19, that revenue may drop in the following year or years. How would you prioritize spending those funds? Let's start with Mr. Kevin Underwood.
I would prioritize those funds first and foremost with trying to address the areas that we're most short now, which I think Barry had mentioned earlier, the need for more actual staff on the roads with the Sheriff's Department. And those areas, along with some of our infrastructure needs within the corrections and in the court system, are where we would probably want to prioritize our expenditures first, and then we would look at hopefully having some rainy day fund, so to speak, in that balance that we would be able to weather out that dip in the funding as we move forward in the next couple of years.
All right, Kevin Underwood, thank you. Jody Hamilton.
Yeah, that would definitely be challenging when you're expecting to get a certain amount and have to look at doing something different. But definitely prioritizing, you know, what they have in place, what they're thinking about doing, and see what we could do with less, I guess. But obviously, we don't want to do something with less that's going to jeopardize the public with our public safety, because you know, that's one of the most important things I believe that we have in this community, and it continues to need to be strong. So really just looking at the programs and what they have in place and really prioritizing those.
All right, Jody Hamilton, thank you. Next, Mr. John Basham.
Public safety, I believe that's one of a couple of things at the top of the list. I voted for LIT, local income tax, and I believe it out of, I don't know, 24 people, only one person voted against it. But I support that. Now, what would we do if that revenue decides to, or will drop off? And we'll just have to live with it. We'll get by. We didn't have LIT 2 years ago, but we'll get by. We'll do the best we can. We have great police officers on board. We got great institutions here. LPD, the Purdue Police Department, the West Lafayette Police Department, our Sheriff Department. We're blessed. This is a great county, and we'll do what we can because we have great leaders in those positions, and they'll pull together. And if this, once again, if this revenue falls off, they'll make it work. We got great people at the head of the top here, so that's the way I would approach it. We'd just hammer it out.
All right, John Basham, thank you. Mr. Dave Williams.
One of the things we looked at when we started looking at that public safety was we are undermanned in our Sheriff's Department. Unfortunately, there is a lot more crime in our community than there used to be. So we're probably underfunded in the prosecutors and probation and those other departments. I think one of the things that we need to look at is hiring. When you have 70% or 75% of the county budget based on personnel, I think we need to creatively look and only hire when we absolutely have to. I'm not opposed to putting some of that money back in a rainy day fund. What we looked at was trying to get some of that expense out of the general fund. And if we can get that expense out and charge it elsewhere, we're better off for most of our departments.
All right, Dave Williams, thank you. Mr. Barry Richard.
public safety, you got to look at experience and what's going to allow our community to be in the best position as possible. 38 years in direct law enforcement, I have. You take the entire council, and they don't even come close to that. I would be able to represent the county with what we're needing and the exact day-to-day operations of what it takes. We can't just say we're going to get by. We can't just say we'll work it out when the time comes. That's why in 2015, I presented the council with a 5-year strategic plan to gradually, responsibly grow the manpower in the sheriff's department and make sure we maximized our potential in making sure that the community was safe. We have over 500 square miles in our county, and at times, there were only 3 deputies on duty to cover that entire area. We cannot let that to happen. It's not safe for anybody in our community. That's why the things that I brought to, and it is, I'll say this, for the first time in all these years, some of the council members that were on board at that time, I never heard them admit to, yes, your department's undermanned, understaffed. And it is, and it was, and it is, and it needs to be, attention needs to be given to what's going to make the quality of our life better. Not only for our life, our children, our grandchildren, the future. And we need responsible thinking and leadership. I'm the person for that job.
All right, very Richard, thank you. And finally, Mr. Shane Wiest.
First off, I want to say how lucky and fortunate we are to have great law enforcement in this community that protect us every day. It is so important, public safety, up there with infrastructure for me is one of the 2 most important pieces that this council deals with. Because without public safety, we aren't going to attract quality employees, quality companies. So we need to do whatever it takes to make sure that funding is there for all departments involved, for our prosecutor's office, for our judicial system, and for our sheriff's office. And making sure that we have enough officers on the road to keep us safe and keep our community safe so that when companies and individuals are looking to move to Tippecanoe County, that they feel like they can do that safely and that families can come here safely. So yeah, whatever it takes in this area, I think it needs to be done.
All right, Shane Wiest, thank you so much. Our next question, what experience have you had working with many members of a group reviewing budgets and policies? Jody Hamilton.
Sure, thank you. So I've been, obviously this is my first run running for office, and I've had the great pleasure of being voted in to fill the vacant position of Brian Metzger, in which I'm extremely honored to do. You know, I'm going to be thrown right into that since it's budget season for the council, but I've had the opportunity also to serve on many not-for-profit organizations, including the Crisis Center and the YWCA, in putting policies in place as well as working with their budgets. And with Greater Lafayette Commerce, my previous role in economic development, we certainly did our fair share of that as well, with budgets as well as policies.
All right, Jody Hamilton, thank you. John Basham.
What experience I've had working with other people and money
Groups
issues, boards,
reviewing budgets and policies.
budgets. Well, 7 of us got a wild hair one time, so we started a bank here in Lafayette, Indiana, and we owned a bank. So that was quite challenging. So we got our eyes opened and the challenges dealing with the government and things of that nature. So we got a vast experience behind us on that, and working with the board members and working with the constituents in Tippecanoe County who come forth and want to borrow money, we take a look at that. And then also working again with the Romney Sewer District, working with the government, working with rural development, working with the state revolving fund out of Indianapolis. I think we got $4.8 million for the Romney Sewer District, and that was quite a blessing. So I know how to work with people and how to grease the skids.
All right, John Basham, thank you. Dave Williams.
Thanks, Gina. I currently serve on the boards of Camp Tecumseh YMCA, and I chair their $10 million capital campaign. I sit on the Marquee Foundation Board, the National Football Foundation Tiller Chapter, and the Lafayette Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm the past chair of the Chamber of Commerce and co-chaired the Federal Government Committee of the Chamber for 20 years. In addition to that, when I was in the school corporation, we had to go to the State Board of Accounts with all of the spending for schools. So I've had quite a bit of experience. In addition to that, I chaired the budgeting for the council for 3 years.
All right. Dave Williams, thank you. Mr. Barry Richard.
Yes, first of all, being the sheriff, I was responsible for close to $14 million per year, 160 employees. And again, we had a tremendous success staying under budget each year, making sure that, and this is a side note to management skills that I think is imperative, to maximize the personnel's morale and so forth. When there was an opening, and we knew there was an opening, we did not wait. We made sure that we had all of the back legwork done, so where positions that were vacated were filled the next day. When there were promotions to be made, we made sure that in cooperation and partnership with our Merit Commission, we made sure those were done to not interrupt the services to our community, our service, and most importantly, to the men and women of our department. Executive Director of the Lynn Treese Boys and Girls Club. When I started there as the executive director a little over a decade ago, there were really some issues and some concerns about the financial stability. We have been able to secure, with the partnership of our community, grants, funds, contributors, donors. Many individuals have stepped up, and our board of directors have been phenomenal. As a team, we have made sure that we are providing the services to several hundred children per day to give them what they need. And it wouldn't come without having fiscal responsibility and to be able to have funding for the programs to make a bright future for the children that we have in our community. Thank you.
Barry Richard, thank you so much. Mr. Shane Wiest.
Even though I'm the youngest candidate up here, I've had vast knowledge in dealing with budgets in different sectors. I've been general manager of a golf course for 11 years, a very difficult industry where budgets are always tight. I've had to be creative with our dollars. I also served as chairman of the Fairfield Township Board for 4 years, so I've dealt with government budgets. And also I've served on many nonprofit boards as president and treasurer, and so I've dealt with budgets in different sectors. I've dealt with tight budgets at times. I've had to be very creative. I've had to meet with a lot of employees, department heads, et cetera, and working out their budgets. So I have a lot of experience in dealing with budgets, and I'd like to bring that experience and knowledge to this council.
All right. Shane Wiest, thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Kevin Underwood.
Thank you. Obviously, setting a budget for a farming operation with family is sometimes the most difficult group of people to have to work with in order to set a budget, but I've obviously had the opportunity to set a budget here in our Tippecanoe County with our council members and our different department leaders. I've also set budgets and worked with our group in the Tippecanoe County Farm Bureau. Also serving at the state level at the Indiana Farm Bureau, we set the budget for our whole organization, not only for the volunteer organization, but also for our insurance company as well. And then I've been in charge of, or been on the committee that's been in charge of 2 different building projects within our church, and so those are obviously sometimes can be very difficult to work with as well. So I've had plenty of experience working with different folks with different attitudes about how to be able to set a budget.
All right. Kevin Underwood, thank you very much. We'd like to give all of our candidates 1 minute for a closing statement. We'll start with John Basham.
Thank you, Gina. And again, thank you for the opportunity from First Christian, the Republican women, and the GOP. You talk about experience. Well, you got to get in the game. And I got in the game in myself. It's easy to write a check when it's opium, other people's money. But I have a business of my own that I built from scratch, and I have a $5 million budget myself. So when I have to write a check, I'm very critical of myself. And that's what I do with Tippecanoe County. I take that as my own money. I take it personal, and I take ownership of that. So you can rest assured, if I'm your candidate, you like me, you want to vote for me, I'll do the job. I'll give you my best. John Basham, Tippecanoe County Council At-Large.
All right, Dave Williams, your closing statement.
I bring leadership to the council. I've been recognized for leadership by Governor Frank O'Bannon with Sagamore of the Wabash, the DeFau Award from United Way, Volunteer of the Year from Family Services, and a Distinguished Citizens Award from Mayor Tony Rosworski. I thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Barry Richard, your statement.
This is a critical time. We have an amazing community. The citizens here of Tippecanoe County is like none other. When there's a true issue or a concern, we all as a community, we stand up, we step forward, and we help, and we take care of it. I've been very, very blessed, fortunate to work in our public and nonprofit agencies, the Boys and Girls Club, Carry Home for Children, the Area 4 Council on Aging. I actually managed a 162-unit apartment complex that was government subsidized and brought that from a troubled property to a very well-respected, run property that we're serving many families to get over that hurdle. I know what it's like to be able to come back and make something out of someone's lives. And this is what we need to look at in Tippecanoe County. How are we going to maximize our returns on what our investments are? And that's where fiscal responsibility comes in. As your council representatives, I will make sure your voice is heard. Barry Richard, County Council.
Thank you. Shane Wiest.
I'm here to represent the next generation. I think it's very important that our generation gets involved, that millennials become knowledgeable of what's going on in the community, how our tax dollars are being spent, and not only that, but to start learning those skills from those before us and those that serve on the council now, and that knowledge that's needed for moving forward. I'm interested in being on this council to be a learner and to learn more about what's happening in our community, how those dollars are being spent, and find ways that I can use my skills to contribute in those areas. When I was elected to the Fairfield Township Board in 2013, I was honored to be named Indiana Township Board Member of the Year in 2014. And that just shows my desire and dedication to, once I'm elected to something, I'm going to put the work in and I'm going to put the effort in. And I would love your vote and your support in this election.
All right. Kevin Underwood.
I want to continue to bring a sound, common sense business approach to county government. I have a proven track record of being able to work with our county in order to be able to accomplish the goals that we've set forward in the past, and would love the honor to be able to continue that in the future. I look forward to your vote and your support throughout the 2020 election season. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Hamilton.
Thank you. So for the next 7 months, I get the great pleasure of serving on the council, and I really would like to continue that on. I think with my expertise in economic development is going to be crucial at this time, especially with the situation we're in. We're really going to have to come together as a team, all the departments, the council, and even with both cities to really get through the crisis that we've been presented to us. And looking at the budgets and what we need to do with it and being more efficient is going to be essential. So I think having the expertise in facilitating numerous conversations and bringing those teams together already on my economic development side is going to be crucial. Thank you.
All right, Jody, thank you. I hope you've had a chance to better get to know the 6 county council at-large candidates in the GOP. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a short message from 4th District Congressman Jim Baird.
Hello, my Tippecanoe Republican friends, and thanks to Tracy Brown for allowing me to provide this update. I've been extremely pleased with the Hoosiers and our community's ability and our resilience during this pandemic. So I'm looking forward to our recovery and moving forward our country, our community, and our state. I have made some notes because there are several things I want to share with you. And so if you'll allow me to move in that direction, I want to share that I know it's been difficult not to be able to communicate in traditional means and do so as we're doing like we're doing right now. But it's amazing to me that we have been able to get grassroots activists, our candidates, our community leaders, and we should be very proud of how we've been able to get out the important message of voting and also supporting our Republican candidates. Over the past several weeks, we've passed legislation to support the hurting that has been caused by the COVID-19, and we've done this in several phases. Phase 1 was just $8.3 billion emergency response package, and funds went to the hospitals and first responders. Phase 2 was the Family's First Coronavirus Response Act. This bill expanded testing and made it free to all Americans, regardless of insurance status. And it provided temporary sick leave to workers impacted by COVID-19. Phase 3 was the CARES Act. This bill was an economic relief package for Americans that includes direct financial aid to individuals and families, and grants and loans for small businesses, and strengthening unemployment for workers. Phase 4 was the PPP Increase Act. Congress recently passed the legislation to provide an additional $300 billion to the Paycheck Protection Program. The bill included $75 billion for reimbursement to hospitals and healthcare providers for COVID-19 related expenses. Highlights include $11 billion for states and local governments to develop, purchase, administer, process, analyze COVID-19 tests, scale up laboratory capacity, trace contacts, and support employer testing. And then there was $825 million for community health centers and rural health clinics that we found to be so important to our rural communities. And now we have, and just recently, Nancy Pelosi introduced a massive $3 trillion bill that doesn't address the real needs of Americans. I am concerned this bill is partisan and it's maneuvered to push liberal policies. This bill facilitates illegal immigration, removes safeguards for election security, and is a wish list for many more Democrat policies. I will be voting no on this bill. Now is not the time to play politics with the livelihoods of Americans. This bill distracts from the real needs of small businesses and hardworking Hoosiers. I hope to provide a more positive update soon on what we're doing to advance an agenda that supports you and your families. I'm always striving to represent you and ensure that you have a voice and are well represented in Congress. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And I want to thank Tracy Brown again and the Tippecanoe GOP for this opportunity to be with you. Thank you.